All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Monday Night Football week number 2. Game 1 of 2, because there is 2 Monday Night Football games this week. We got the Texans taking on the Bucs. In this video, I'm going to dive into this game. I'm going to give you my prediction on the side. I'll give you my prediction on the total. We'll talk about a few player prop spots that I like within the game as well. But as always, guys, keep an eye down on the pinned comment of this video. That's where you'll find all of my final plays, so what I'm actually rolling with myself. If that does interest, if you do want to fade me, all of that absolutely free down in the pinned comment. All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. I tell you guys I'm a dummy all the time. They don't suck. They've just been sucking. Get them down to -3, 4 more juice than Jose Canseco in his prime. Tell me you're new without telling me you're new. So don't go jumping down my throat in the comments, right? If you want to fade me, or if you do want to ride me, this still leaves a bad taste in my mouth, right? And remember, more chins, more wins. In terms of how we made out last Monday night, we did make a minimal amount of profit. Very, very slim. I feel like it could have been better, but hey, we're in the wrong industry if we're going to say coulda, woulda, shouldas, right? We did cash DeAndre Swift's over 13.5 rush attempts. That was relatively sweat-free, but the true sweat-free play was Will Reichert over 1.5 field goals made. That cashed in the first half. Bears money line is the one that I'm a little salty about, right? We also took a swing at Swift to score a touchdown. That was a plus 120 play, sure, a little bit more of a flyer. But the Bears money line looked like it was trending in the right direction until it didn't. So, yeah, it was still profitable. I can't cry over it, but I feel like we got burned a little bit. But I know a lot of people got burned on that Monday night game. Guys, before we do dive into this game, I want to let you know that we'll have a different video out, its own standalone video for the Chargers and Raiders Monday night game, so go ahead and keep an eye on that. It might be posted by the time you are watching this. But yeah, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let me know your favorite plays in this game in the comments section down below. You're not just letting me know, you're also letting a bunch of other people in the comments know what you're like, and you can help out a bunch of people. I see a lot of banger plays in the comments each and every day. Real quick, guys, before we do get to the game, I wanted to talk to you about Outlier. I have a link down in the description as well as the pinned comment for a 7-day free trial. Especially when we get to the player prop portion of today's video, you'll see me using Outlier and how amazing it is. It is by far and away my favorite player prop research tool. So go check it out. Link down below in the description as well as the pinned comment, or scan the QR code on your screen right now. You get 7 days free. No code needed. Just use that link. Let's go ahead and talk about this one, shall we? So we got the Texans. Right now, 2.5 point favorites, obviously a key number at home. That total sitting at 42.5. Texans coming off of a pretty rough one in week number 1. They lose to the Rams. They only put up 9 points of offense. Matt Stafford had a decent day against them, 21 of 29 for 245. CJ Stroud, 19 of 27, 188. He did throw a pick. The Bucs are coming off of it came down to the wire, a sweaty win against Atlanta. If the Atlanta kicker doesn't miss a field goal, we're probably looking at overtime, and who knows what would have happened. But 23-20 win for the Bucs. I wouldn't say Baker Mayfield had the best of games, 17 of 32. He did throw for 3 tutties, but only like, what, 100 and I think under 170, 167 or something like that yards. So not exactly the best from him. Realistically, no one other than Emeka Egbuka looked really, really good in that Bucs uniform on Sunday last time out. Let's talk about CJ Stroud and this Texans offense and what we may expect or should expect out of them. So this is a Bucs team that in week number 1 played a pretty fair share of zone and man, but historically, and it's still a Todd Bowles defense, they have, especially last year, played a ton of zone, right? If we look at it in our dashboard, and I'll explain later on how to get access to this. In week 1, like I said, it was kind of 50-50, but realistically, they were a top 3 team in terms of zone frequency last year. Now, CJ Stroud, you can see a lot more green in terms of how he does against zone than he does against man. So I do think to that degree, we might see CJ Stroud have the ability to spin it and kind of pick apart the zone. But I wouldn't get too carried away saying that, because this is a CJ Stroud that also struggles against pressure and struggles against blitz. And while they didn't really do too much of that against the Falcons in week 1, I already mentioned this is still a Todd Bowles team. This is a team that had the 6th highest pressure rate last year and blitzed more than any other team in the league. So that's where CJ Stroud may kind of get thrown off here. So if this offensive line holds up, then sure, maybe they can negate that a little bit, but there are some injuries to worry about. Jake Andrews, the center, and Ed Ingram are both questionable in this spot. If you miss two offensive linemen against a Bucs team that likes to blitz, likes to apply pressure, and is good at it, I do see that being somewhat of a problem. Now, Houston's run game also wasn't exactly the best in week number 1. It wasn't god-awful, I don't want to go there, but it wasn't all that great. Chubb had 13 carries for 60 yards. The team averaged 4.2 yards per carry. That was just middle of the pack. They had a negative EPA per attempt, though, and their success rate was just 33%. They did finish top 10 in yards after contact. Makes sense with a bruiser like Chubb, but obviously Tampa Bay is going to need to finish their tackles in this spot. Tampa Bay, speaking of which, was pretty good against the run in week number 1. They went up against two different types of running backs, obviously. Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier. And both of those guys ran for just 24 yards, 2.5 yards per carry, the 6th best in terms of EPA per attempt, and the 4th best in terms of defensive success rate. So, yeah, I do think that this is going to be a spot in which Tampa Bay can minimize the run damage. And we'll see, we're rolling the dice with CJ Stroud at the quarterback position against this defense overall. Can he handle the pressure? I think that he'll be able to handle the zone defense that we'll probably see. If we flip it over and start to look at Baker Mayfield in this Bucs offense against what we can expect out of this Texans defense, things do get a little bit interesting. Houston, both, in the recent years as well as week number 1, played pretty much a split 50-50, 55-45 of man and zone. Baker Mayfield, in terms of how he performs, we can see it here on the dashboard, very much good against the zone. Not terrible, but not too great. Numbers do tend to dip against man. But this is not a Texans team that pressures, not a Texans team that blitzes. They have a really, really sound defense, and what they're going to do is have your quarterback sit back there and try to beat the defense that's in front of him. And I don't really know if Baker Mayfield did that in week number 1, right? We talked about it. He did have 3 touchdowns, which is obviously a good thing, but threw for less than 200 yards, almost 50% completion percentage, just over that, like one completion over that. I don't necessarily know if we saw the Baker Mayfield of last year in week number 1. So even that, you could be on the fence whether or not you think he's going to perform or not. Run game. I was really surprised to not see the Bucs utilize Bucky Irving on the ground more than they did. He finished with 14 carries. We did have his over an attempt, so that was nice, but just 37 yards. And this Bucs team, obviously new offensive coordinator, but last year they did run a ton of power run. And then in week number 1, they were the second team in terms of power run frequency. So I guess that validates that they may be keeping that scheme even with, a new OC. This is a Houston team that's pretty damn good at stopping the run as well as stopping the power run. Now, power run specific, 12th in yards per carry, 12th best last year, 12th in EPA per attempt, so top third of the league, right? The problem is they were a bottom 10 team in success rate against the power run. That means that this Bucs team in any short yard situation or any yard to go situation may be able to stay on the field, which could be a little alarming if you're taking a peek at the Texans here, right? So all that being said, I don't necessarily think that there's massive advantages on either side, but there's enough there for me to like the idea of having some points in my back pocket with the Bucs. So I'm going to lean towards the Bucs. The plus 2.5, don't necessarily love that if we were to lock this in. And again, guys, keep an eye on the pinned comment. If we were to lock this in, I'm probably looking at getting, another half point or a 1.5. Right now, if you want to go out there and get, say, 3.5, you're paying minus 148 on FD. If you wanted to get that 3 and have that push potential, you can get that around minus 120. So that's probably what we would do if we like the Bucs, unless you or we just want to take a stab at them on the money line. In terms of a total, did anything I talked about there really lead us down a direction of, there's a gaping hole in defense A and the offense should be able to take advantage of it, or a gaping hole in defense B, offense should be able to take advantage of it? Not really. I think you have a really sound Texans defense that Baker Mayfield, Bucky Irving, the run attack, the receivers don't necessarily have like this massive edge against. And then vice versa, I do believe that pressure is going to impact CJ Stroud. I should also mention that we have an injury on the Bucs side of things. Wirfs, the offensive lineman, he's questionable as well. Actually, he's already ruled out, right? So he's out. But again, the pressure wasn't really the concern for me with the Texan side of things. But overall, 3 offensive linemen between the two teams out. I think this could be a spot for an under. Now, 42.5 with a CJ Stroud, Nico Collins, Nick Chubb, Baker Mayfield, Bucky Irving, Emeka Egbuka, Mike Evans. Like, a lot of guys in this game are big play potential type guys. So that could turn us off. But realistically, even from a pace perspective, Tampa Bay had the slowest seconds per snap last year, and Houston, top third of the league in terms of slowest. And then in terms of no huddle percentage, we really didn't see much no huddle out of the Bucs last year. They were 8th in terms of fewest frequency, and then 7th, fewest no huddle plays last year for the Texans. So yeah, don't mind the idea of in under here. 42.5 obviously seems a little bit low, but that's what I'm going to be looking at here. Now, guys, before we do move into the player prop portion of the video, I wanted to go ahead and talk to you guys about Epic Fantasy. We're going to be throwing out some Epic Fantasy plays over on my Instagram at EvPicks. Make sure to follow me there. My socials are populating right here and going through if you do want to follow me. But this is a really, really cool DFS player prop app. You pick more or less based on, say, player set projections. The more you win, the more you get paid out. Speaking of payouts, the payouts on Epic are a lot better than some of the competitors out there, and you can also get softer lines, which is really, really cool in terms of comparing it to the competitors. Now, what I think really, really separates them, and I've already talked to you guys about this a decent amount on the channel, the Fade'em section. You can see the Pick'em section on the screen right now. That Fade'em section, I think, is such a cool idea. A lot of smart minds are going to be in there, because what that is, you pretty much look at other users like me and you, other users, right? Their entries, and you can fade them. Now, all they need to do is get one incorrect out of their entire entry, and you get paid out. It's really, really cool. Use the link down in the description as well as the pinned comment. You also get $50 in terms of a deposit bonus, and matched up to $50 if you do choose to sign up. So check it out, guys. Link down below in the description as well as the pinned comment. Available in 38 states and counting. I think this app's really going to take off. Go ahead and check it out. I'm having a blast on there. Again, follow me on Instagram at EvPicks. It's on screen right now to see some slips that we actually post, because I've been having a blast. Link down below in the description, as well as the pinned comment. Let's jump into a few player props here. All right, the first player prop spot we're going to look at here is going to be Dalton Schultz, over 32.5 receiving yards. Week number 1, you can see he came up just shy. He did have, I believe it was 5 targets, 3 catches. I also don't mind the idea of his receptions. I could see this being a spot in which, yeah, we're going to see a ton of pressure and a ton of blitzing out of the Bucs, right? Who allowed, 26, so the 8th most or 6th most receiving yards to the tight end position last year. Receptions, not receiving yards. Against receptions, 2nd most. I have that flipped, receiving yards and receptions. What I like here is the idea of him having some short passes to catch, CJ Stroud going to him in kind of a safety blanket attempt. I could see also a lot of sort of chipping the blitz and him releasing. So that's why I would, now that I say it out loud, probably like the receptions a little bit more than the yards. I could see him having, which he did in week 1, or actually that was last year. He had 3 receptions for only, the yards were barely there as we looked at, right? 28 yards. So this is a guy that averaged under 10 yards per reception. If he has 4 catches, you're probably okay with both receiving yards or receptions. But to me, Dalton Schultz could be a little bit of a safety blanket here for CJ Stroud. Now, I've already mentioned that CJ Stroud, if he has a clean pocket, he should be pretty good to go, right? So why not look at a bounce back spot here for Nico Collins, who obviously didn't have the week 1 we'd expect. 25 yards through the air. He had 5 targets, 3 catches. This is a spot in which Tampa Bay, allowed plenty of receptions to the wide receiver last year. Even using our dashboard, you could see here that we have him in a fairly easy matchup. That is a algorithm that's based on adjusted defense versus position, in terms of DVOA, as well as fantasy points against. So I do think that we may see some forcing of the ball to Nico Collins, and is 75 yards a high line for him? It certainly is, but I do believe he's going to get going, especially if CJ Stroud has the protection that he needs, and especially if those offensive linemen end up playing, because this could be somewhat of a downfield threat. Especially if, like I said, the zone, they get back to playing that zone with Tampa Bay. I think Nico Collins will be able to find those soft spots or take the top off on a couple of these ones. In our third player prop here, Ka'imi Fairbairn, over 1.5 field goals made. Yes, another kicker prop that I'm throwing your way, but we've loved kicker props so far this year. And his last 10 games, he's averaging 2 field goals made this season. Last year, actually, he had in 15 and 19 games. This year, 3 last week against the Rams. He was all of their points. Last year in home games, he hit this averaging 2.33 per game, 7 of 9. And what I like here is that we have a decent enough defense, 14th ranked in terms of defensive red zone efficiency. And right here, last year, now this Texans offense I do expect to be a little bit better this year, but last year, 26th in terms of their offense in the red zone. So they settled for a lot of field goals, and using our dashboard, you can also see it here, TD rate, right? So how often do you get in the red zone and score a touchdown against the Bucs? Not too often. They were a top 10 defense in the red zone, and offensively, oh, would you look at that? Just like we talked about, Houston struggled to actually score touchdowns in the red zone. So even when they were converting and whatnot, 26th, it was a lot of field goals that they were getting points for. That's why the number's different. One's touchdowns and one's just, being able to convert in the red zone. So those are 3 player prop spots that I'm liking. Another spot that I'm looking for in terms of player props, now we don't necessarily have it here yet in terms of lines, but I really do like the idea of the linebackers, maybe even the safeties here, in terms of their tackles plus assists on the Bucs side of things. When they run Nick Chubb, again, I think they're going to go with a man scheme run. The Bucs should be very good against that. And Nick Chubb obviously is going to try to bruise and try to get some contact, meaning there could be a lot of potential assists out there and a lot of potential tackles. So I do think that this could be a decent spot to target some defensive players to their tackles plus assists, but we just don't have those lines available right now. But I'm looking at names like Winfield, I would say, Levante David, even Diaby, just some of the guys that are linebackers or safeties. So if we roll with any of those, I'll make sure to add them to the final plays, but that's kind of what we're looking at as of right now. Tried to consider Mike Evans in this spot. I did, but to me, I just kind of like the Texans defense enough. So that was another sort of throw in. But guys, that is all for me in this video. Just to recap a little bit here, we do like the Bucs, but I probably want them at +2.5 or +3.5, maybe even a teaser type spot, right? If you get the Bucs and you go 5-point teaser, you get them at 7.5, and you can also look at an under at 47.5, right? But anyways, I like the Bucs. I don't mind the idea of an under. Kaimi Fairbairn over field goals, Nico Collins over in yards, and then Dalton Schultz kind of went back and forth on that, right? Receptions or receiving yards. Keep an eye on the final plays to see what we ultimately end up rolling with. Really do appreciate you spending some time with me. If you made it this far in the video, go ahead and comment 16 and lets me know that you made it this deep in. Really appreciate it. We'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.